Hi, everybody. JJ here, and happy Friday. Hopefully, everybody is winding out the week on a positive and productive footing as always. We're back again with another ASUS PCDIY hardware live stream. I think this is number 45, and we've got a good amount of things to be able to jump into. We've got a cool preview of this guy actually right there that you'll see, or the follow-up version of this one that I'm using right here, the brand new ROG Chakram X. This is actually one of the kind of final, I think this is a DVT, so a development production sample that I've just got in here. So I'll be able to do a little bit of a hands-on preview. It's going to be our next generation kind of flagship tri-mode wireless, wired and Bluetooth enabled mouse. It's got some cool new updates on it and definitely a very cool design. So if you've been looking for an ultra high performance, definitely mouse, this is definitely one that you're going to be interested in. So we'll be talking about that. We've got our brand new Ask ASUS segment where we're reaching out to the community on our social platforms like Instagram, and we're going to be answering some of those questions here on the stream. So we'll be diving in that. And of course, we've got the ASUS PCDIY Builder Spotlight, where we're taking a look at your guys' really cool builds that you've gone ahead and submitted to be featured here on the stream. Hey, Erica, thanks for joining us here on the stream. Thanks for also letting us know that the audio is good to go. So fantastic in terms of that respect. So thanks so much for checking us out. It looks like we've got Dead BC77. Hey, man, happy to have you here on the stream as well. Snef is definitely excited about the Chakram X. Definitely thanks for joining us as always on the stream as well. And looks like we've got a Geekbench guy as well. Hey, fantastic. Thanks for joining us here on the stream as well, man. So looks like we've got quite a number of people joining in. Hey, Joel, thanks so much for joining us on the stream as well. So we're going to get ready to jump into it. And as always, if you guys have any questions, feel free to go ahead and drop them in the chat, and we'll do my best to go ahead and check them out and respond to them as I can. Okay. And for those of you that are not aware, of course, we do have our ASUS PCDIY group. So if you're not part of that group, it is a great community that we have of fellow passionate ASUS PCDIY enthusiasts. We talk about everything in there from overclocking to modding to water cooling to air cooling, media center builds. It doesn't matter. It's all talked about there in the group. And it's also really the best place to be able to find out about the latest and greatest that's happening on from ASUS, because as soon as there are applicable updates, I do post those there in the group. So if you're wondering about the latest products as we're getting ready to release them to the market, or once we're actually putting them on the market, that's a great place to find out about that information. So I will go ahead and drop that link in the chat for those of you that are interested in checking out the group. Go ahead and drop that in there for you guys, and we will go from there. So I think first things first, let's go ahead and quickly touch on just UEFI BIOS announcements for this week. As of right now, no really big UEFI announcements. Last week we had quite a bit of UEFI announcements with that beta update release that was widespread across AM4 series based motherboards with the AGISA 1.2.0.6 base release. So nothing too much beyond that. For this week, we have a couple of, I believe, predominantly B660 series motherboards that got a UEFI update. So those will be posted in the ASUS PCDIY group a little bit later today. So if you kind of want to double check in terms of which boards got an update, then you can check out that corresponding post along with the FAQ, which covers a lot of the information regarding, whether you should update, if it's a beta, should I wait for a follow-up release, or kind of any of the other questions. Or if you don't really have any knowledge on how to update or flash your UEFI BIOS, there's also a link to the full YouTube video guide that I have that's available on our ASUS North America YouTube channel, which actually walks you through step-by-step how to actually flash and update your UEFI. All right. So let me see. All right, so I think that covers us there in terms of UEFI BIOS announcements. So beyond that, I've got a couple of other cool updates that I just want to go ahead and jump into, and we will go from there. Let's see, we got a quick question here, though, that we can definitely jump into from Zelto. Where can I buy ROG mouse switches? So what you might be asking about is actually these guys right here. I think I might have, let me see if I have some of our very cool, yes, I think I got it right here. ROG. Yeah, I got it right here. Okay. So let me show you guys actually what this individual is talking about here. And you guys can see here. Give me 1 second. And I'll show you. Here we go. All right. Sorry, I had to pull up that image there. There we go. Okay. And oh shoot. Okay, sorry. I don't actually have that close-up image that I thought I had there. But I'll probably pull that up in here in a second. But essentially the RG micro switches are a set of new switches that we introduced with the launch of the Gladius 3 series mice. And pretty much they have a specialized design where they're actually bent for kind of tolerances between the left and the right switches. They have electro gold plating in terms of the inside, just to be able to maximize kind of lifespan, reduction of oxidation-based issues, a very nice crisp and tactile feel. And for essentially our wide range of mice that have the ability to customize them, I know that there's some people that want to be able to get the RG micro switches, but as of right now, you can't actually purchase those independently. They only come included with specific RG mice. So take, for instance, the ROG Chakram X will come with it. The new ROG Spatha X comes with it. The Gladius 3, the Curious Wireless, they all come with a brand new RG micro switch. That being noted, you can definitely get very, I'd say, similar types of switch experiences in terms of the overall kind of tactility, the lifespan, and kind of premium quality construction. Definitely Kale makes quite a number of them. There's definitely the very popular the GM4 and the GM8s are definitely very popular. There's also TTC that makes some very nice switches. So there's quite a number of options that you have available. I've actually done an entire stream that dives into this a bit, so that if you kind of are wondering about like what might be switches that you want to essentially potentially maybe upgrade to or something like that, then you can do that. Here you can actually see this is essentially an example of the ROG micro switch. So this right here is the ROG red micro switch, but you can see right here, these are all kinds of different types of micro switches that are available. And so these can be dropped into our essentially our mice that feature our push fit socket design. And for the highest end mice that we offer, like the Gladius 3, as well as now with the Chakram X, they actually also support the new optical options. So you see right here that these are a 3-pin. These are your traditional micro switch, and then your optical micro switch will actually look a little bit different. So the actual push fit socket design, if you wanted to go from a mechanical based switch to an optical based switch, you can actually run either one. And you can get actually these micro switches online. So you can get them from quite a number of different e-tailers, including Amazon. Take, for instance, you just have to look for micro switches. And again, if you're kind of interested in finding out a bit more, definitely I would say check out the stream that we did, which talks actually about the push fit socket design and kind of replacing your switches. Looks like where can we buy parts for the Helios case? That's actually not something right now that we actively have. It is something that we've been working in terms of our product design team and management team to be able to kind of have a broader set of, I'd say, like accessories or let's say aftermarket kind of replacement options available for the user. So in most situations, if you're trying to figure out if maybe you can get a replacement for a specific type of part that you might have had for the Helios, the best thing you can do is just reach out to our service and support team and see what they may have available in terms of being able to coordinate with our fulfillment centers in terms of the service and support team from ordering a certain part. But generally, as of right now, we don't list these type of accessories. Take, for instance, like on, let's say, the ASUS eStore. Our customer service team does coordinate in terms of being able to kind of order certain parts for different types of products that we may have available, but I can't tell you specifically that, X and X and X part would be available. So that is something that, again, you would have to reach out to our service and support team and see what they may have available in respect to that product, in addition, inclusive of the RG Helios that you just asked about there. Okay. So let's go ahead and keep moving this along here. And next item is see, we've got UEFI BIOS updates. I think that's good. I did want to give a quick update here on some deals and promos that we've got going on right here, just for kind of reference, and some people might be kind of interested or wondering. So one of them is actually going to be on the ASUS eStore, and so I will drop this in a link here. Some people are still not aware that the ASUS eStore, we actually do have actually a section on the shop right here at the top. You'll see right here, it says actually bundles and deals. So this has been recently added in. And so you'll see actually in terms of bundles, we do actually have even graphics card bundles. So if you are looking to purchase directly from ASUS, you do have some options. You can actually even see right here, there's actually right there, there's a 3070 Ti with a monitor, 3090 with a monitor, 3060 Ti, and a couple of other options here. So you can definitely refresh and check those out if you're interested. And then also incrementally, you can drop over into the deal section where we might have specific promotions that we might have available for different types of products. And those products will essentially be varied over time. So, sometimes it can change in the same week. In most situations, they're generally going to last a few days to, I'd say, a week. And then they'll generally be refreshed. So you don't have to check it kind of every day, but it's really kind of up to you. If you go down right now, you can see there's a nice promo right here on a really great monitor, the VG30VQL1A. This is a really nice 1440p based IPS based display, decent compatibility, good response time. It's got a high refresh rate, good overall color gamut performance as well. And you can see right there, $80 off from its MSRP there from $380 to $300. So actually a pretty nice savings. So that is something that you can go ahead and check out. I will drop those links respectively in the chat if anybody wants to check those out. And do keep in mind, this is respective to ASUS's US eStore. So if you guys are checking us out from another part of the world, sadly, this is specific to ASUS North America and specifically to our US eStore. ASUS websites in respective regions, including Canada, have their own respective potential e-stores, or they may not have an e-store, and they may exclusively provide their products through channel partners, meaning e-tailers or retailers in that region. So just do keep that in mind. Okay, so let me go ahead and drop those links there quickly in the chat. Hey, Rusty, thanks for joining us on the stream. Happy to have you here. And I think we also, like I said, let me drop that other promo link there for the bundles in there as well. Okay, very cool. All right, so we've got those two now out of the way. So next up, I want to go ahead and jump into some of the Q&A that we've actually had. And actually, let me see right here. We actually do have a couple of other promotions right here that it looks like actually my team wanted to let me know on monitor side. So looks like we got $50 off on the XG27AQ. That's actually quite a nice model. So normally that's $450, and that's actually been price dropped $50. So again, a really good choice if you're looking for a 1440p based gaming display. We have the VG277Q1A, which is $30 off. And then we have the PG329Q, which is $50 off. So let me go ahead and drop those in the chat for you guys. These are going to be promotions that we're running until just the 20th. So just until Sunday. So definitely going to be some good deals if you're looking at, and that's actually a pretty good range of different monitors there, right? So we're talking about a couple of quality 1440p based displays, and then with the PG329Q, that's actually a very cool display. It's a little bit different than I'd say kind of the standard that most probably people are taking a look at, because it's a bit larger in terms of the actual size of the monitor. It's a 1440p based display, but 32 inches. I'm actually a really big fan of this monitor right here. So this one right here, you can also see that we also have it actually as a promotion on ASUS right now. So it's normally $699 and $649, but you get that 175 hertz, 1 millisecond gray to gray, fast IPS based display, very good color gamut performance right there with an HDR 600 race rating, ELMB sync, very well spec monitor, and a really nice big display. So I'm a big fan of this. If you haven't considered kind of jumping up to 1440p and you've got a little bit more kind of desk space, very nice option to be able to jump up to. All right, so that takes care of some of those monitor promotions that we wanted to be able to go ahead and jump into. All right, let me see here if we got anything else there on the promo side. Looks like we're good to go in terms of those promotions. So the next thing actually I wanted to touch on was going to be actually a pretty cool announcement that happened pretty recently, earlier in the year, I think at the very end of January, and that was from AT&T. AT&T, of course, is a national telco carrier, and the reason why I'm bringing it up is that they actually communicated that they're beginning essentially the rollout for ultra-high-speed ISP-based services. So the reason why that might potentially be important to you is that right now, probably for the majority of users, their overall ISP service has probably been limited, if they had fiber, up to about 1 gigabit space service. But AT&T is going to now be looking to actually deploy 2.5 gigabits and faster ISP-based services. So this means that if you're looking to have really, really fast internet coming into your home, and with AT&T looking to do actually a national rollout, I believe 70 cities have been listed in terms of this deployment, and they have already started to actually push this out. This is a really exciting opportunity. The catch, though, is that, of course, you have to keep in mind that to be able to really maximize and benefit from that, you might need corresponding hardware. So two of the pieces of hardware could be that one, your actual PC itself might not have a 2.5 gigabits LAN port. Now, many of our motherboards that we have do now feature 2.5 gigabits, and they've had them for a couple of generations. But we do also offer a USB-based adapter and a PCIe add-in card. So, and kind of in either situation, if you're looking to be able to upgrade to 2.5 gigabits, we do have you covered in that regard. So let me actually show you what that looks like. And then I will also quickly touch on essentially the router side, because we do have actually routers that will help to essentially enable kind of support for this 2.5 gigabit ISP service. So let's take a look here. First is that this is actually the USB based adapter. So this is the USB-C 2500. So it supports, of course, standard Ethernet connectivity, but it supports up to 2.5G. And it's pretty much just a straightforward kind of plug and play experience, right? Just plug it into your USB port and you're good to go, and you can have 2.5 gigabits networking. So this is a product that is right now already available, so you can go ahead and pick this up. Do keep in mind that it does have to be plugged into a USB 3 port to fully get the best performance out of this. So it's not something that you can use on a USB 2 port. Okay. But otherwise, you see, it's not too complicated. It's a kind of pretty straightforward product, right? In terms of its overall design and functionality, right? So that's going to be if you want to go the USB route. And if you wanted to maybe go the PCIe route and you potentially have maybe a little bit of an older base system that doesn't have 2.5 gigabit networking, you can also consider our PCE. So that's PCI Express C2500, and that would be a 2.5 gigabit add-in card. So that would allow you to go ahead and again, upgrade to that 2.5 gigabit networking specification on your system. So again, doesn't matter whether you want to do it on a laptop or on a desktop, we've got both solutions covered with either kind of option, right? USB based or PCIe based, right? And then lastly, let's go ahead and just quickly talk about this, how that would work in terms of something like on the router side. So let's take a look probably at maybe something like our ROG Rapture, our GTAX 6000. That's another one model, although we do also have the, the RTAX 86 and the 86S are actually both models that would actually even be lower priced than this. But let me go ahead and show you this model here. Give me 1 second and we'll bring this up here. Okay, and so this model is going to be, again, right here, the ROG Raptor GTAX 6000, and it's a very high performance based unit. So again, if you haven't kind of upgraded to Wi-Fi 6, this is a great option in terms of giving you very, very high performance wireless connectivity, really built for the current generation of Wi-Fi enabled devices, from laptops to smartphones, tablets, even now televisions, of course, motherboards that all feature Wi-Fi 6, very, very fast quad core based architecture in here. Great far-reaching stable Wi-Fi, and you can support AI mesh. So even if you wanted to pair two of these for even broader coverage, you could. But the really cool part is actually going to be in the LAN connectivity. So you'll see that you've actually got a couple of different ports on here, your traditional LAN ports, and then you also have your WAN ports. But the cool thing is that this unit does incorporate 2.5 gigabit networking on this unit. So if we actually head over here, let's go ahead and take a look here. You'll actually see here, we've got your 4 traditional kind of LAN ports. There's also a dedicated gaming port. And then you've got a 2.5 gigabit port here and another 2.5 gigabit port here. So one could be for LAN and then one could be for WAN. That's really cool because if you're using one for WAN, which would be for your internet service coming into your system, right, then you would still have another 2.5 gigabit to maybe connect directly to, let's say, a desktop or some other system, or even another switch if you wanted to be able to maximize being able to maintain 2.5 gigabit based service. And one other cool thing that I'll let you know that if you might not be aware about is going to be that with our routers, we also support something called WAN aggregation. That actually means that you can combine another port with the WAN port to actually be able to have faster speeds. Why might you do that? Well, at the same time that AT&T is deploying that 2.5 gigabit service, they're also actually deploying even faster speeds all the way up to potentially 10 gigabits. So if you've got like a 5 gigabit service that you might be coming in, you actually might need to do what's called WAN aggregation. So kind of combine 2 ports together to be able to get that speed coming into the router and then being able to fully kind of realize and maximize and benefit from it. So that is going to be, I think, a cool little update that we have in relation to just supporting really kind of the next generation of ISP services that are going to be rolling out. So if you guys have kind of the need or want to be able to go to a faster class of internet, definitely we've got you covered with, like I said, that GT-AX 6000, the RT86, the RT86S, and actually quite a number of models. And even for those that have 10 gigabit, we do even have routers like the RT89 X, which would even have 10 gigabit built on board. So there's pretty much like a router for just about every single ISP and every single type of networking configuration that you could have out there. So that gets you covered there, guys. All right, so that is a cool update that I just wanted to kind of talk about a little bit there. So next up, let's go ahead and see if we can take a look at some of our Q&A that we have from some of our users out on Instagram. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of our questions. So from Cool Ray 1819, when is the Z690 Hero coming back in stock? Well, it's actually already coming back in stock. So I think we actually announced this a little bit ago in terms of the PCDIY stream. So it has already essentially gone back into active production. So after we initially essentially issued out that recall notice, we worked with essentially our production team, and we got everything kind of back in line. It's all A-okay. And there's actually already been users that have been able to pick up the board from the new production, have great systems already up and running, and are good to go. So again, feel free to go ahead and check your corresponding e-tailers in question, and you should essentially see restock. If the boards happen to be out of stock, just give it a little bit of time and you should see it be refreshed, but we are working to actively put the boards back into production. And the last time I did check, it was already available. Let me quickly see if it is available. Let's say, for instance, at one e-tailer. Just as a double check, let me see here. But the last time I did check, it was already online. And, that's also a good question that sometimes kind of people wonder about is like, how come you can't necessarily give kind of more concrete timelines in terms of product availability? So yeah, actually, yes, it is available right now. I will go ahead and drop a link in the chat. And part of the reason why it can be a little bit more challenging to kind of dial in and tell you exactly when a product might be available is because once it actually gets released from our distribution channels, there's logistic pipelines that come into play, right? So everything from physically transporting the products in terms of trucks or wherever they're kind of going on to getting to that respective e-tailer, and then their systems to then process it, actually get it into their inventory systems and get it listed online. There can be many other factors in relation to that. And so sometimes that can literally take weeks, sometimes, even sometimes in rare cases, it can take even months in terms of kind of just logistic backlog or logistic considerations in terms of getting processes out. So even when we do receive something from kind of, let's say, production, right? And then it gets received at the port, and then it goes to our distribution center, or even if it goes directly out to distribution partners, there's a lot of logistic pipelines that can vary in terms of how long it can take something to kind of show up. And that's where it can be challenging. But that is an advantage of the group. That's why I tell people that if, you're wondering about our product availability, feel free to go ahead and tag me, and then we can try to coordinate with our account managers or our product managers and try to see if we can find out about a little bit more accurate kind of timelines to say, hey, we were pretty confident after talking to them, they're expecting it, maybe within the next, 3 to 5 days or something like that. Or if there's maybe been a bump in terms of that availability, we can also help to talk about that. Okay. So hopefully that answers your question there. As I noted, the Maximus Z690 Hero is back in stock, and it's a fantastic board. Really, really great board for those of you going with 12th Gen series builds. All right. Next up, let's see here. We've got a little bit more of a text-related question. So why does my ASUS motherboard BIOS settings reset every time I reboot my computer? So this is a really kind of hard question to answer because it doesn't really have any kind of deeper information. If you consider joining our PCDIY group, we have a support template that I ask people to fill out, which asks for a lot of good information to help us better kind of look at your question. And of course, as always, I do recommend reaching out to our service and support team. But that being noted, without kind of knowing more information, I would say kind of my first three guesses or recommendation would be: one, if it's a much older system, it could just be something as simple as the CMOS battery on the motherboard. Here you can't see it because it's underneath one of the shrouds. And let me see it. Do I actually have a board? Oh, I got a board right here. Magic bag of holding right here. All right, so you can see right there, that's a CMOS battery. This CMOS battery generally will have about a lifespan of it depends, about 3 to 6 years. Depends on kind of a number of different factors. But that CMOS battery, if it dies or essentially maybe has kind of popped off a little bit, it's not maintaining a charge, there's kind of different variables, you could essentially not have your settings be correctly stored and maintained. So one, make sure that the CMOS battery is fully actually depressed within the actual CMOS battery holder, or replace the CMOS battery. So that could be one. Two, another one could be that if you're actually running too aggressive an overclock, you could actually be tripping the motherboard and causing what's called the watchdog timer to kick in. The watchdog timer is essentially kind of a built-in logic system that we have that helps to kind of counteract when the board is running into some type of training or instability issue related to overclocking parameters. If it keeps getting triggered, that generally means that some form of kind of an overclocking parameter is probably too aggressive or too tight, and it needs to be kind of reset and retuned to be actually stable. And you can usually easily test over this by just loading F5 UEFI defaults, getting your system back to a stock setting, and then rebooting. And if your system actually posts normally without any issues, it does mean that one of the corresponding overclock values was at play. The third one could be some form of component fault. So it could be possibly a PSU, it could be a component that might not be fully seated that could be causing an issue, or it could be like faulty DRAM. In that situation, you kind of just got to go through the debug routine, right? So the first and most easy one would probably be to maybe use a bootable memory test and try to boot in and see if you could detect if memory is working okay. And if it isn't, then of course you want to reach out to your memory manufacturer and RMA your memory. But those are just 3 things you might want to check out, and hopefully that helps you. And like I said, if you're looking for more support, make sure to reach out to our services support team or consider joining our group. All right, so that gets us there in terms of answering hopefully Martin J. Hammer's question there. So let's see here, just before we go over to our next question, if we've got any other things that have come up there. Hey, Raphael, thanks for joining us here on the stream. Very cool to have you here. Let me see. Oh, sorry. Oh, hey, Connor. Any updates on the ROG Fusion 2? Yes, in the not too distant future. Nothing for you right now that I can tell you, but we're not too far away, probably in terms of the availability. And I know I haven't completed it yet, but I will be finalizing that updated PCDIY release calendar for the group. So you'll be able to kind of get updates there. But definitely rest assured that once we're actually getting ready to push it out for availability, like we did with the Flare Animate when it became available, I'll have an actual post in the group, and I'll also be making sure to actually note it here on the PCDIY live stream. Hey, I have not touched on our ROG Swift 360 hertz 1440p monitor. If you have questions, let me know. But that's actually a product that we teased a while back and talked about in one of our prior streams. If you're looking for more information on it, I would make sure to go back and check our CES 2022 recap live stream where I touched on it. That product right now, we still don't have any new information in terms of kind of timeline or availability. The best I can right now tell you, and this is very much fluid when we talk about monitors because there's a lot of different aspects in terms of kind of fine tuning all the aspects of these very ultra high end performance based monitors. But you're going to probably be looking, I think, probably at a Q3, maybe even Q4 release timeframe. So with that, just make sure to keep it tuned here to the kind of weekly updates. If you have any questions, let us know. And I will be including this monitor, the PG 360 hertz 1440p based display, in the product release calendar that we offer in our group. So that actually has a kind of pretty much a listing of all the products that we haven't released or come out with yet, but people are wondering about. And as I get more information, there's essentially an updated release timeline that we essentially help to note there when we might think the monitor might be coming out, expected MSRP, and kind of other points of information like that. Okay. So let me go ahead and just go to our next question here, and we will go from there. So this is from Jordan Kurt, and he's asking, there are rumors of a BIOS update to get the 7700K Windows 11. So this is kind of an interesting situation. It's not one that I can really comment on. What I can tell you, right, is that Microsoft doesn't currently have official support for the 7th gen series of CPUs, right, in relation to Windows 11 CPU support list. So I know that Microsoft is still potentially working on maybe potentially revising the extent of the CPUs that are currently officially supported. On our side, on the motherboard side, you don't really need a UEFI update. We have released a wide range of UEFI releases that essentially made a minor modification to the UEFI parameters that essentially defaulted to what's called a non-CSM environment. Essentially, it's what's called a native GPT installation, native UEFI installation that is designed to align with the Windows 11 installation requirements. You can do this manually. You can go into the UEFI and just disable CSM, assuming that all your devices support it. So, everything from certain USB devices to your storage devices, to your graphics devices, all of them have to support essentially that native UEFI protocol. But once you go ahead and do that and you adhere to the other requirements, you can then install Windows 11. But in terms of kind of Microsoft's stance, they don't currently have official support for your CPU. So that is something that you would want to essentially follow up with I believe the Microsoft Feedback Hub and, see if there's maybe any potential changes that they might be doing. I know there's some other options that some users have in terms of kind of alternate installation avenues, but that's not something that we would dive into. There's also kind of the reality that you ideally would want to make sure to see are all the drivers available. Now, Windows 11 is going to have very good in-box, what is called driver support, especially for older devices where you might not necessarily have to have a up-to-date driver. But generally, you still do want kind of core drivers to be able to optimize and ensure the best experience. So that would be things like your chipset driver, your networking driver, your graphics driver, your audio driver. Some of these, like I said, can definitely work from an in-box driver perspective without any issues, but you would want to double check that. I can tell you from our end, most of the, I believe the oldest series of motherboards that have received formal Windows 11 driver validation support from the actual hardware manufacturers that produce, let's say, the controllers and the chipsets has generally gone back to about Z300 series, not Z200 series. So you still could probably make it work by maybe taking some other drivers and getting them installed, but it's not necessarily maybe going to be the most streamlined experience, but it could still be possible. All right. So let's go ahead and go from there. Next question here, we've got something from McCarthy99, looking for the best AM4 motherboard to run a 5950X. This is a very interesting question. So best to me is kind of a complicated term, right? Because there is no quintessential best. Best in what respect? Are you talking about the best board under, $250, the best mini ITX motherboard, the best ATX-based motherboard, the best motherboard for overclocking, the best motherboard for a high-end water-cooled build? There can be different choices for different reasons. When you talk about just overall kind of the core experience, the reality is that our X570 lineup and even our B550 series lineup will be able to readily support a 5950X pretty much to the same degree. So let's go ahead and take a look at some motherboards. So I've got some boards right here that I can go ahead and pull up. So let's go ahead and take a look right here. This is going to be, let's see, this is right here. This is going to be the Tough Gaming X570 Pro 2, this is B550, B550 plus Wi-Fi. And this is going to be a very solid choice. It's got a robust VRM that will definitely handle no problems. The 5950X, it's not going to be power limited in any respect. It will be able to ensure stable and reliable operation. Even if you wanted to enable PBO, you're still going to have that PCI Gen 4 support. You're going to have dual M.2 support. If you get the Pro model will even give you a USB-C internal header if you want that. It's got Wi-Fi 6. It's got 2.5 gigabit LAN on board. Very solid board. Isolated audio. You're going to have, 4 RGB headers that are on this board along with ARGB headers. So you're really kind of going to get everything I think you could ask for in a very price aggressive board. Now, is this the best motherboard? That really comes down to your budget. That comes down to the experience you want. There are multiple aspects. A lot of people will immediately go to like the most expensive board, and that's not the right way to evaluate the best motherboard. If we kind of just maybe go to some other options, let me see here if I just want to go to a comparison here. Let me see if I can show you something. So this is an example of what I would mean by also evaluating that when you look at a kind of motherboard, you want to look at multiple aspects. You want to look at something like, the overall features, the functionality, and the specifications. So you take a look right here. This is B550 and this is X570. So even in X570, we've got really great boards like the Tough Gaming X570 Pro, 2 and the ROG Strix X570-E Gaming 2, both really great boards and are definitely nowhere near our most expensive motherboards, right? And they're both X570 and they would have a nice upgrade. But why would you want to upgrade to them? Well, maybe you just want more connectivity. If you take a look here on the B550 Plus, you've got a lot of good connections. You've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 USB ports. Now, not all of these are going to be ultra high speed, right? You do have one type C, but you don't have maybe any kind of maybe faster base ports, right? So that could be maybe a limiting factor. You've got that 2.5 gigabit LAN and still Wi-Fi 6. But if you go over here, you can see you've got 4, 8, 10, 12 USB ports. So you have quite a bit more, and all of these are USB 3 ports, right? So you're going to have much faster speeds. You have dual LAN, right? So that is going to be just something as simple as like, do you just need more ports, right? So that is going to kind of just be something to keep in mind in terms of, respectively, when you're talking about best. It really kind of comes down to what are you trying to get out of your system? Where do you want to put the majority of your budget? I think that B550 board that I recommended to you, I think is a very good choice. But if you wanted, let's say, maybe just 2 other options, let's go ahead and give you, I'd say, that X570 board, I think, is going to be one. So I think this is going to be a good choice right here. Sorry. Yeah. We've got right here the Tough Gaming X570 Pro 2. This is going to be a step up. It's got a passive-based chipset. It's got dual, of course, M.2, both supporting PCI Gen 4, although that's not really that big of a factor. USB-C right here in terms of the internal header. You're going to have more connectivity, a higher-end power delivery system, right? But really the main thing you're going to be paying for with X570 is really going to be the upgrade to the dual PCI Gen 4 support. That's going to be really kind of the primary reason why, and of course, generally a bit more USB connectivity. A secondary choice I'll give you, if you're maybe a little bit more of an overclocker and you want a little bit more of a premium experience, would probably be something like this. So this right here, I think the ROG Strix X570-E Gaming 2 right here. This is going to be a bit of a higher end board. It's got a much higher end audio design. It's got some little bit more specialized items that are going to be present on it, along with even more robust kind of power delivery and thermal solution, more rich IO connectivity, and integrated IO shield. But probably really one of the cool elements is that it has a technology called dynamic OC switcher, which we used to only offer on our highest end crosshair motherboards. This will allow you to have a bit more kind of control over having a very cool type of overclocking experience where you can have essentially an optimized kind of like PVO overclock, which would be able to prioritize single frequencies. And then you could also have a more kind of comprehensive all core overclock or per CCX based overclock. And this dynamically can actually change up depending on the load. And it's a really cool feature that we introduced exclusively on our higher end crosshair series boards, but this motherboard is now introducing it at a lower price point. So that would be my initial recommendation for you there. Okay. All right. Next, we got a question here from Because Cool, and then we'll check to see if we got any questions there from our community here. What keyboards were those? So I think this actually was from the fact when we did a video post on Instagram, they were asking what keyboards I was using in that video. I think I moved one of the keyboards away, but I know one of them I had in the video was this guy right here. So this is the ROG Falchion. So this is our wired and wireless ultra compact keyboard. So it's the 60% keyboard. We now have it with both our ROG NX switches and our standard Cherry MX switches. So the choice is up to you. It's got a cool media knob right here. It's got onboard memory profiles, hardware adjustment to the RGB if you don't want to use software, onboard profile support. Very, very cool model. It even has a cool little included cover that you can actually use as kind of like a diffusion tray, or when you want to take it on the go with you, you can cover it and you can keep it protected. That all comes included inside the box. Again, it's wired and wireless. I'm a really big fan of this. The other keyboard that I featured here in that video was, let me see if I have it right here, was the Moonlight White ROG Strix Scope TKL. So that would be this keyboard right here. Sorry, guys. Give me 1 second there. And let me see if I have it right here. Moonlight White. Yeah, right here. Okay, cool. Got it. And this was the other keyboard right here. So this is the essentially white version of our TKL based keyboard right here. And this one also, you can get it with the ROG NX based switches. And this is also has a detachable cable. It has onboard memory profile, hardware level lighting control with the function, and then of course, the arrow keys right there. Very cool design. So those were the two keyboards I was using in that video. All right, and let's go ahead. And before we get to the next question, actually, let me go ahead and answer one more before we get to our community questions here right now on the stream. Is why is the animated headphone not out yet from 2WYT12? I think he's probably talking about the ROG Delta S Animate, and it actually is available right now. It hasn't rolled out to all e-tailers right now, but you can get it at Adorama. So if you want to pick it up, just head over to Adorama and you can pick it up. It is available, and it should be showing up at other e-tailers like Amazon and our e-store in the not too distant future, hopefully in the next coming kind of week or two. Okay. All right, let's see if we got any community questions before we get ready to jump into our preview of the ROG Chakram X. All right, so we will get to that in one moment. Let's see right here if we've got any questions. Let's see here. Hey, Mel. So the main, actually, we're answering just community questions. We've got a PCDIY Builder Spotlight. The main thing that we're actually showing off that's new is going to be this guy right here. So the ROG Chakram X, which is a brand new gaming mouse that we've got right here. So we're going to be showing off in just a little bit. So that's going to probably be one of our one of our most immediate items right there. We've also got a new gaming monitor that we're going to be touching on here in a moment from our Tough Gaming series, which is an ultra wide. And then we're also going to be talking about a mini PC. So a couple of different models as far as some new items. Okay. Let me see. Any chance of getting... Oh, interesting, Raphael. Thanks for that feedback. As of right now, that's not something that we have in mind, but definitely I think accessibility for a wider set of users is always something that we should be advocating for and looking at. So that's definitely feedback that I'll talk to our team about and see if that's something that we can work on. So thanks for giving me that feedback. Jen is asking about any new plans for any AM4 motherboards. I can tell you at this time, we have no plans right now for any more additional AM4 motherboards. We recently released quite a number of updated AM4-based motherboards, including B550 series updates, as well as X570 updates with a total of 5 X570 series motherboards. We covered all of those in our recent X570S quote-unquote live stream, which covered all of those. So if you're looking for white, I would take a look at the ROG Strix B550-A or the X570 Prime Series motherboard. Both of those are great options if you're looking for a white themed based motherboard. Okay. Motherboard. So this is an interesting question. I don't know where this is coming from as far as somebody asking about whether motherboards make noises. Motherboards should never make noise. That's actually not right. Motherboards. Okay, let's go ahead, and I don't want to take too long on this because we want to get ready to talk about the Chakram. But if we take a look here at the power delivery section on the motherboard, right? Here you're going to have your inductors, your MOSFETs, your capacitors, right? So this is the power delivery section that you have on the motherboard, right? And some people are aware that when you have, let's say, something like a graphics card, that there's something that sometimes people talk about that's called coil whine. Sometimes it's not even actually the inductors or the coils that are inside the inductors or the chokes. It's actually the MOSFETs that are on the graphics card, and they can actually produce a resonance. They can produce a sound. They can emit a sound. This doesn't mean that the component is faulty or failing. In fact, it actually is just kind of a byproduct, and it very much depends on quite a number of different factors in terms of the load characteristics that are being put on them, how they're being driven, and quite a number of other kind of different things that can come into play. Now, generally, because the power limits on a motherboard aren't going to be taxed in the same way that a higher end GPU is, I would say that the likelihood to see some form of audio kind of emission coming from a motherboard is going to be rarer, but it's not impossible. I can definitely tell you, in the thousands of motherboards that I've tested, I have experienced boards that you actually can emit that. And like I said, sometimes it's a little bit more noticeable, sometimes it's less noticeable. It depends on different kind of characteristics, but it is something that can occur. Okay. All right. Let me just see right here. Any questions there? Any new ASUS AIO coolers? Yeah, we actually released quite a number of new updated coolers recently. So we had the updated Ryujin 2. So this guy right here, which has recently been pushing out to the channel. So we're going to have actually a new ARGB edition of this model right here that's going to be coming out. We then also, of course, have the excuse me, the Tough Gaming LC ARGB, and we then also have the Tough Gaming LC2 series, which comes in 280, 240, and 360 base variants. So altogether, we've got the Ryujin 2, the ROG Strix LC2, the Tough Gaming LC ARGB. Those are all brand new AIO coolers that we recently launched, and those all feature the latest generation 7th gen pumps as well. So, and we have covered those in previous streams. So if you want to find out a little bit more about them, just check out some of the previous streams that we have on the YouTube channel. Gabe, any news on the ROG Strix Flare 2 Animate and NX Blues as of right now? Not going to be coming in the immediate future. Definitely the first and foremost focus, because it's quite a bit more popular, are the reds and browns. Blues will be coming a bit later on, probably not in Q1, probably going to be closer to a Q2 timeframe, but definitely once they are available, we will make sure to give an announcement and update here on the actual YouTube channel. All right, so last but not least, let's go ahead and get into our last question right here. So let's see. We've got a question right here. Is any updates planned in terms of the PG32UQX? So for those of you that are not wondering about, he's asking about, it's pretty much almost our flagship ultra high-end HDR monitor. It supports up to HDR 1400. It's very, very impressive. We don't talk about anything that might be a design and development, or essentially is kind of an NDA product for us, until we're ready to kind of tease about it. So I can't tell you about anything like that. We have already announced essentially kind of like an alternated lower cost version of this monitor. It won't feature the same ultra high-end HDR based performance. It'll be the PG32UQXE, and that will still be a very high performance based monitor. Has a new type of panel design, high performance HDR rated specification. It will also have HDMI 2.1, a high refresh rate based display. So that's going to be a really, really nice option for those that weren't necessarily ready to invest the higher end price point of what you would be looking at if you were considering the PG32UQX. But then again, that is really a monitor that is really suited towards somebody that's really passionate about having not only outstanding color gamut and really outstanding kind of 4K desktop user experience, but also really wants that dynamic range and contrast that can be offered with in terms of mini LED technology, because it supports really the absolute best monitor experience possible right now when it comes to peak HDR performance. All right. Okay, so that is going to cover us there. I think we're going to get ready to jump into talking about the ROG Chakram X. So let me just see if we've got any new questions right there. They've popped up, and we will go from there. And again, if I missed your questions, feel free to go ahead and just keep putting those on. Excuse me. Feel free to go ahead and drop those in the chat, and I'll do my best to go ahead and get to them when I can. Is the Thor 2 still tracking for release? I don't have an update right now. We're still actually in some discussions with our headquarters team, and kind of covering up a couple of things, but definitely rest assured, when I have an update to give you a revised update timeline for the Thor 2, it'll be coming in the not too distant future. I'm hoping to maybe have an update for you in the next week or two. Just make sure to keep it tuned in the group, and definitely it will be a formal posted announcement. So stay tuned. Our goal is still to focus in terms of the first model that we released will be the 1000 watt, then followed by the 1200 watt, then followed by the 1600 watt, and then last would be the 850 watt. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and take a look at this guy right here. So this is the ROG Chakram X. So what makes this kind of mouse so interesting and so special, right? So really, I think the first and foremost thing is that when we talk about kind of a mouse, right, is that I think the cool thing is that first and foremost, you're going to see with this one is going to be that this is a, let me go ahead and just adjust that right there. This is actually the mouse right here. Let me go ahead and disconnect it. You'll see that it's got already kind of a little bit of a cool design where it has this front RGB right there that's in the front. It has then RGB that's, of course, on the encoder, the scroll wheel, and then RGB that's nicely kind of visible through this diffused body. We're going to go ahead and take a closer look up here at a second, but I'm going to go ahead and detach the actual ROG paracord cable. So that already immediately shows you one of the cool things. Now, this is going to be a USB-C based mouse. So that means that you, of course, just have a nice point of flexibility in terms of customizing the cables if you want to go that route. But that's nothing new for ROG mice. All of our current generation mice are all USB-C, every single one of them. So you don't have to kind of worry about one being micro USB-C and the other one being not. They're all USB-C. So in addition to that, the other kind of really cool thing is going to be when we actually take a look at the side profile right here, where you actually see that it has a joystick. And we're going to take a look at the difference between the first generation Chakram and the Chakram X in terms of how that joystick differs. There's also some internal redesign elements where it's a brand new actually sensor. It's an aim point sensor, 36,000 DPI and 8K polling. So this is an ultra high performance flagship mouse that is really designed to align also with the Flare 2 keyboard, which also has 8,000 hertz polling. So really designed for those that are really looking for the absolute highest level in terms of kind of really having that lowest latency and kind of input performance, right, when it comes to your peripherals. So it's really optimally kind of designed to pair with the Flare 2, and then also an ultra high refresh rate monitor like our Tough Gaming or ROG Strix series, 280 hertz, 360 hertz type monitors, where you're really kind of focused at having that absolute low input response experience, right? So let's go ahead and take a little bit of a closer look at some of the cool design elements here on this. So let me go ahead and just move some of this out of the way, and we're gonna throw this under the secondary display here so you guys can take a closer look at it. All right, you see right here, we're going to get the Chakram 1, Chakram 2. We're going to get both in here in the shot. And I'll also kind of do a little bit of an unboxing right here too. So let's go ahead and take a look here. All right, so here you guys can see this is going to be the Chakram 1. And here's the Chakram 2. Side by side, they're pretty much going to look identical. You're not going to see there's a difference. They are a bit of a slightly longer body. So if you have a little bit of a larger hand and you also have a little bit more preference to kind of have a lip there to be able to rest your thumb on right here, you can see right here, that's really nice to just be able to kind of just rest your thumb right there. Okay. You can go ahead and go with multiple grip styles. So this is more kind of traditional kind of palm, but if you wanted to kind of go a little bit more kind of in claw, right? You can kind of really favor it up. It's really up to you in terms of kind of that palm grip kind of style that you might favor. Weight, now this is going to be a little bit, I'd say, on the heavier side, but I really think that, especially if you take a look at the broad level of mice that are available, for a lot of people, this is still going to be a very comfortable, usable mouse. But if you're looking definitely for sub 100 grams, you're going to want to take a look at other mice that we have, whether that's going to be mice like the Gladius 3, the Keras wireless, the M4 wireless, any number of other mice that we'll have. They're going to be much lighter in weight, but I think this is quite still nice in terms of the 127 grams that it comes in at. So you can see right there, again, the RGB right there, the RGB in the front, and then the RGB in the rear. Now, one of the really cool things that you're going to see here in terms of this mouse is, let's go ahead and disassemble this a little bit. And you'll see that you can quickly pop that off. You can see right there that you've got the RGB. Now, this can actually be customized. You can pull this off. And there's actually one inside the box that you can go ahead and change out. So if I go ahead and open up the box here, you'll see that there's actually a secondary insert. You can put like a sticker, you can customize this, you can do whatever you want. You could place that on that and you could change that out. So you can go ahead and customize it. So that is an option right there. Another really cool element is going to be right here that this is probably our fastest mouse to be able to disassemble if you want to be able to customize the switches. So normally you would have to actually use a screwdriver, but this mouse is even simpler. You can literally just pull it off. That uses magnets. Right, you'll see those pull off right there, and you'll see already this model has those really, really nice ROG micro switches. So these are premium micro switches, 70 million clicks, gold plated in terms of electroplated on the junction. And I'll show you a little bit up, I think, of a close-up image that I might have right here. But you can go ahead and swap these out to optical switches if you wanted to, or just change them out. But these are outstanding. They have really, really nice, crisp, consistent tactility. They feel great. We also have actually a special type of design right here, which is going to be to help to create actually more consistent actuation. What you'll find in some mice is this portion of the mouse doesn't make direct contact with the actual actuation plunger, which is on the micro switch. And what that means is that when you press this, you have to press a little bit more down to hit the actual switch. But here, there's actually a much more consistent experience because there's actually a contact mechanism that's built into this portion. So this allows for actually a really consistent experience when it comes to hitting the mouse. Okay. So let's take a look at the design difference here. Let me snap that all back into place. All right. So you can see right here, this is the original. And then we have the new model, right? And you'll actually see that this has actually been adjusted. It's actually quite a bit larger than this one. And that was actually from feedback that said that people felt that they wanted to actually increase the size to be able to actually grip it a bit better. And the surface texture is actually a little bit different as well. So see if I can get in here and show you. I might have to zoom in a bit, so give me a second here. But the textured material is also going to be a bit different. You'll notice right here, this actually has a little bit of gripped texture around the joystick, where this one, it doesn't. And it's subtle, but when you put your thumb on there, you'll actually feel that. And this also has a little bit of a concave design where this is flat. So this is concave, so you'll actually feel a little bit more, your thumb kind of goes in there and rests, and then you can move it, right? Of course, up and down, you can move it just like a joystick. You can map that for different functions, like scrolling. You could scroll. So if you want to have an ultra fast scroll experience, you can do that without actually even moving the encoder, or you could pan the camera, you could adjust volume, you could scroll on pages, you can do a lot of different things because you can map it. The other difference right there is also going to be in the buttons. If you notice here, there was only 2 buttons, but here now there's 1 button, 2 button, 3 button, 4 buttons. So there's 4 buttons. So there's quite a bit more flexibility to customize these. And these also have been moved a bit back. So this is, in terms of the design, you'll see this is a little bit farther out in front, and this has been pulled back a bit. So it's a little bit easier to access for a lot of people that especially have a little bit of smaller hands. It's a different shape. It's enlarged. It has more tactility. And then there's 4 buttons right there. Right. So another design difference, if we take a look here at the bottom, is going to be in terms of the design for the actual feet. So this is the old design where you still had good quality skates, but this is now our newer 100% PTFE skate design. So it's even going to be smoother. It's going to have even a better overall tracking experience. Like I said, the sensor here is an ultra high performance sensor. It's really the best you can get, 36,000 DPI, 8K, and outstanding IPS performance. You can see you have a DPI adjustment right there and 3-point adjustment with Bluetooth low energy, USB-C, off. Essentially, if you don't want to use it, it can be wired. And then from there, your 2.4 gigahertz low latency connection. And the other cool part is that you can store the actual wireless module right here inside the mouse. So if I take it out of my motherboard, let me go ahead and see if I can pull it out right here. You would essentially just be able to store it in there. So you could just dock it in right there. So that's a very simple process in terms of just sliding it in and you're good to go. So you can dock it straight in there. So that's a little bit kind of the visual tour, but otherwise, the mice themselves are going to look pretty much identical in terms of the overall design aesthetic between, the first generation and the second generation right there. So let me see if anybody's got any questions there quickly before I actually let me show the box off first here. So here's the box as it is. You can see it's still got the Qi wireless charging, so you can also still charge this directly, right? Or a sync, right? So you can go ahead and customize all the lighting zones that we talked about, right? So if you want to customize this lighting zone, the front lighting zones, the rear lighting zones, you can do all that. You can go in there and you can adjust it. You can see Bluetooth and that 2.4 gigahertz ultra low latency. And the box, it's pretty cool. You get right here 2 additional sets of switches right here. So if you want to be able to customize your switches right there, you can see you've got that little micro switch. You've got a switch puller that you can go ahead and a little bit more easily access that. You can see right here, you've got a nice little adapter and extension in case you need that, right? And so that would attach to the cable if you want to be able to have for the RF transmission, right? And then you also have other, of course, joystick nubs that you can replace on the actual Chakram if you want to be able to, customize them a little bit more to your kind of preference. Or if you don't want them at all, you can also remove them. So it's up to you. So let me see if I can do that really quick. I'll show you what that looks like. And that's the plate right there that we already talked about to change the RGB. And I think you also get a little case for this one. So there we go. So you'll see you get a nice little padded case for your mouse, right? And there is even one there that you could, of course, put the USB-C cable inside so you don't lose anything. It's nice little padded, and you're good to go. And then your documentation. So that's everything that comes there with the Chakram. And I'll show you the cable too, because the cable has been revised for this generation. So the original cable, it was a nice quality cable, but it was a little bit heavier. This one is our brand new ROG paracord cable. So the ROG paracord cable, it's very lightweight and it's really smooth. So, when you move this around, you're not going to have really kind of any type of drag, right? It's very, very smooth. So it's a really, really nice experience. It's very lightweight, and it still has a nice kind of premium feel to it. And it's got a nice length to it. You can see there's the USB-C that's on one end, and then there's the type A, right, to plug into your system, right? Okay. And here you can see right on the side, let me go ahead and just turn that off quickly. And I will check the questions there in a moment. So give me 1 second. So you can see I just pulled off the joystick. And let's say you don't want to have that joystick right there. You can see you can just put a cap, and now it's entirely flush, right? So if you just want to have that nice kind of just full grip experience, you can just pop that on there and you'd be good to go. But then if you want to be able to put the joystick back on, you do it. And I can tell you, I love using the joystick even inside Windows. It's really nice in terms of the overall usability experience. So let's go ahead and change back here. Let's see if we got any questions. And I think I have the software here so that I can show you guys a little bit of kind of what the UI element looks like inside of Windows. If you guys want to check that out really quick, I can show you what that looks like. So give me 1 second here to pull up a couple things. So give me 1 sec, and we'll show you a bit what's going on here. So okay, cool. So I've got a couple of things that I can actually show you right here. Okay, so the first thing here to show you is going to be this guy, which is the actual inside of the ROG micro switch. If you guys remember, I talked about that gold plating. So this is the actual internal electroplating right here, which is actually designed to, like I said, reduce the oxidation and help to maximize reliability. And there's a little bit of a more kind of close-up shot where you can see I've disassembled the actual micro switch, and this is the actual internal portion of it. And in case you're kind of wondering to see what that works like, I think I do have a little video here. So let me see if I can show you this video. So yeah, I have it right here. Okay, cool. So this is actually how the switch works. So you can see kind of a close-up experience where there's the actual plunger, and you can see that's actually what's depressing, right? So that's actually what's occurring. And the reason why that gold plating can be important is because that's going to be essentially more, it's going to be superior in terms of its overall kind of tolerance to oxidation and humidity and things like that. So when you talk about kind of consistent actuation and hitting that, that's a preferred type of design, and you'll only see that in the kind of the best type of switches that are out there. Okay, so let me see here if we got any questions that came up there. Jen is asking, do we have a white version planned for our GPU holder? So the wing wall or the Herculex? Not that I'm aware of, but definitely if we do come out with something like that, you'll definitely find out about it once we post about it right there. David, we only actually cover updates for our PC DIY component products. I don't cover them for any of our system-related products. So actually, your system, which would be a GA35, that's considered actually a system-related product. So like our laptops. So I don't cover the actual UEFI releases there. So if there is one available, of course, you can download it and check it out if you'd like. In most situations, though, generally system-related products, the UEFIs that they ship are going to be pretty kind of system stable because they're not usually designed for kind of the level of interoperability, performance tuning, and many of the other elements that you would find on kind of a more PC DIY centric platform. But if you have more questions, definitely I am knowledgeable in that respect, so you can go ahead and reach out and ask if you'd like. We do have sometimes people that drop in questions in the group, so you can feel free to follow up if you'd like. Okay. You see right here? Yes, it is wireless. So you can go ahead and again, you can use this either with Bluetooth or you can use it with 2.4 gigahertz. The Bluetooth is also the latest generation Bluetooth 5, low energy. So it pairs great with if you want to use it, like I said, on a laptop where you're not necessarily gaming, but you want to maximize the lifespan. But then if you are going to game, then that's where you can, of course, want to utilize the wireless adapter. The wireless adapter is going to be this little guy right here. It's very small. And that's going to be for the best performance. That's going to be for the 2.4 gigahertz ultra low latency gaming performance. So that would be what you would want to use when you're gaming. And then Bluetooth would be great if you kind of want to switch it for non-gaming experience. And then, of course, if you also wanted NVIDIA Reflex support or kind of ultra low latency, the best absolute experience, and the 8K polling rate performance, then that is when you're going to need to use the USB-C cable. Okay. The lightest mouse that we produce is going to be the brand new Tough Gaming M4 Air that comes in at 47 grams. I think, to be honest, though, it's somewhat irrelevant. What we generally have found with a lot of community kind of based feedback is it really kind of once you break about, I'd say around even 100 grams, but definitely once you get, I'd say probably sub 90 grams, you get into the 80 grams and lower. Weight isn't really kind of the factor. It really becomes actually much more about ergonomics, button layout, and kind of hand size preference, right? So I really think actually you can have an outstanding experience with, you know, an 80 gram, something in the 60 gram, or is something as lightweight as, of course, the Tough Gaming. It really just comes down to your, like I said, your preferences in terms of your hot spots in your hands, the shape and size of, you know, your thumb in relation to your index finger, how you grip and hold a mouse, so many kind of different aspects like that. But the lightest weight mouse that we do make is going to be the Tough Gaming M4 Air. And then we also have the ROG Keras wired edition, which is, I believe, sub 65 grams. So two very lightweight mice. The wired version, this is already going to be a wired version. So again, remember, if you want essentially to make it wired, all you need to do is just plug in the USB-C cable and bam, you've got a wired based mouse. But we do also offer a kind of a less expensive version of it. It's still utilizing the older design, and that one's called the Chakram Core. And that one is not wireless. It's purely a wired version, but we do have that model, and that one is available right now. Okay, let me see right there. Gabe, I should have it updated probably by end of day on Monday. Okay. Mo is asking, what would I recommend for a bigger hand? I think this is a great choice. I think the Chakram, the Pugio 2, the Spatha X, and even probably the Gladius 3 would probably be my top recommendations for anybody that has bigger hands or is probably larger than probably 5'11". I'm 6'2", for instance, and I think this mouse is a very comfortable feel for somebody with larger hands like me. Okay. You do have X and Y axis control, and another new update aspect here specifically for the Chakram is that it does give you the flexibility of it does give you the flexibility of working. You can essentially have it in different modes. So when you're using it in a digital mode, that's where you can map pretty much any key function that you want within Windows to essentially the joystick or to these alternate buttons, right? So you could do a lot of different things with it. Or in gaming scenarios, before there was a kind of a limitation that for the kind of control setup, it had to be through a Steam related game. But in this new design, it actually can work outside of Steam. So you can do Steam games or you can do other games. It doesn't matter. And you just go through the normal mapping routines. So there's a lot of different points of flexibility in terms of how you can go ahead and set it up. Okay. All right. So I think that goes through, I think, all the key things that I wanted to go ahead and touch on there. So let me go ahead and just get this wired back in there. And we will get ready to keep moving those things along. If we've got any other questions right there, let me see. Sneff says, I have very big paws and I use the Chakram. It's perfect for somebody with a huge hand. Thanks, Sneff, for that feedback right there. And I would definitely agree. I think for anybody with a bigger hand, it's a really, really good choice. And I think the new design elements that we put in terms of the readjustment for the actual access to the joystick and the redesign are both items that I'm really big fan of. So I love that, along with the performance. One thing to do keep in mind that some people don't necessarily realize that with 8K polling rate is that because you're increasing the consistent polling rate, very much when you use a high level of performance for, let's say, like a USB-based device or like a NVMe storage device, it will actually take more CPU resources. So you will actually see higher CPU utilization for something that utilizes 8K polling when you set that in. So that's why still on the default, most of the time you're going to have still most people default to like 1K polling as opposed to higher. But of course, with modern high-end systems, that's nothing to worry about. But just some people kind of wonder, is there kind of a byproduct to that? So outside of that ultra fast polling, you do have to account for that essentially you're asking the system to be essentially consistently registering that. And that will actually produce a little bit of an uptick in terms of CPU resource. Okay. Hey Zello, any new plans on releasing new streaming gear? So we actually have already released updated versions of our ROG. So we have already a 1080p 60 hertz actually webcam that also includes AI noise canceling technology, which I think is a really cool update. As far as whether we're going to have anything on the microphone side or some other things, as always, make sure to keep it tuned. We have focused on doing some cool new technologies in terms of our headset, like with the new Fusion 2 headset. It has an actually integrated beamforming based microphone, so you don't have to worry about any of this. You can literally have the headset and have beamforming, which actually provides very, very good call quality. Not call quality, but voice quality, without you having to actually have the positional kind of tendencies of what you need to do with a microphone, where to make sure that maybe it's a little bit more kind of warm or well balanced. A lot of the positioning is really kind of critical with a mic, where if you do it actually through the headset and you utilize actually intelligent beamforming, it can actually be directly pretty much always where you want it to be without you having to worry about moving in and out. Because you guys notice, if I move a little bit away, right, this has got a nice cardio capsule, right? You begin to actually change some of those characteristics. So it might not be as kind of rich or kind of well defined in terms of the sound. So we are kind of looking at a lot of different things, nothing to kind of talk about, but make sure to keep it tuned, of course, to our streams, and you'll find out about the latest and greatest things that we're going to be coming out with. So with that, does anybody want to see the actual quick kind of software environment, what it looks like for the Chakram? If not, we'll probably kind of get ready to keep moving things along there. But if you guys do want to at least see what the experience looks like in terms of kind of how the buttons can be mapped, let me know. I think I can probably just pop that up into our software environment, and I could probably show you what that looks like. So I don't remember if I have it though set up for that secondary display, but if it needs be, I can see if I can go ahead and check that out. All right. Okay, so let me go ahead and close those items out right there, and we'll get ready to keep moving those things along. Give me 1 second here, guys, and just make sure, see where we're at. Okay, so I think that gives us there with the ROG Chakram X. Let's go ahead and quickly take a look at some of those new items that I talked about there that we were going to touch on as far as some new product introductions. And then we will get into our PCDIY Builder Spotlight, where we've definitely got some cool PC builds to be able to touch on. So let's see here. So, yep, we already talked about the ROG Chakram X. So let's go ahead and take a look here at our Tough Gaming monitor. This is going to be the VG30, I believe, VQL1A. Yes. Is that right? Yes. So this is going to be an update right here. It's 29.5 inches, a 21:9. So that means it's going to be an ultra-wide monitor, 2560 by 1080, which is a pretty nice resolution in terms of being able to be not too difficult to drive, offer you a nice level of kind of pixel PPI, so it's going to be a nice sharp display, right? And give you, like I said, a little bit more immersion. So definitely if you're somebody that's looking for something traditionally a bit wider than your standard base monitors, but also without necessarily getting super expensive, but also giving you some nice performance attributes, right? 2560 by 1080, up to 200 hertz, 1 millisecond MPRT. That essentially means that that's not going to be a 1 millisecond gray to gray, but you're still going to have good quality response times here. Extreme low motion blur technology there, which is essentially backlight strobing, and 127% of sRGB means that we're going to have some nice color gamut, right, in terms of giving you some nice punch and dynamic range. And then also FreeSync support, which essentially means it's an adaptive refresh rate based monitor. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of those quick specs right here in terms of anything else that might be of relevant value to you guys. This is going to be a VA panel. So VA panels generally are going to be slower in terms of the response than the absolute, of course, best TN and the best IPS-based displays, although they can actually be competitive in terms of the absolute best VA panels in terms of the response time. You'll also see right here is that it does have a 1500R curvature, so you are going to have a little bit more of that immersion, a little bit more of that peripheral vision is not going to be a strain because it's going to essentially be curved into you. And it's got a solid 300 nits in terms of brightness. Definitely not a little bit brighter like some of our higher end monitors, which might have like a 400 nit rating, which gives you a little bit kind of more punch. But 300, definitely 250, I'd say is about that baseline where for definitely a gaming based display, that's where you want to be. 300 is a little bit nicer. And then I really like 400 nit base panels, even for SDR. That means they can get nice and bright and really be able to provide punchy kind of experience, right? And like we noted there, up to that 200 hertz. And let's see right here, of course, you've got a lot of our key technologies, some basic speakers there, which works back for, YouTube videos, basic audio playback. You do have a USB hub that's built in, which is nice, USB 3.2 Gen 1. So that's cool. An earphone jack that's also there, essentially connect headphones to it. 2 HDMI ports and a display port that is also present on this monitor. So that is going to be a well-spec'd. Let me see here. Yeah, this does actually support our display widget software. So if you're not aware, if you actually were to go to the software, you'll actually see right here that there, actually, I have to go to, let me see. This is going to be listed under Windows 10, but there should actually be an updated package right here for the software, which would be called Display Widget. If we head over probably back to the product page, we'll see that the cool thing about Display Widget is it lets you control aspects of the monitor from within Windows. So if you actually want to customize and have different kind of visual presets for different things, so like maybe one for your web browser, one for a game, one for looking at pictures, you could actually have the monitor automatically switch those based on when you launch the application without having to touch the on-screen display buttons, which I'm a big fan of. So let's see if it does have that. Yeah, you can see this is actually the Display Widget software right here. It's a cool little utility that gives you a lot of options to be able to customize the monitor all within Windows. And this is complementary to other features like we have with Shadow Boost technology, Game Plus and Game Visual, and some other kind of nice presets right here that you can go ahead and tune and adjust. So that is going to be the VG30VQL1A. All right there. Very cool. You can see if we got any questions right here that came up. Okay, very cool. All right, doesn't look like we have any questions right there in terms of that. So that pretty much covers us in that regard. Okay, and I think that, let me just see right here. Okay, that should be good on that side. So let's go ahead and get ready to actually probably take a look at our PC DIY Builders Spotlight. So I think we've got about 5 or 6 submissions this time around that we're going to get ready to jump into and be able to kind of show you guys some cool builds. Oh, actually, I can see right here. I did forget right here. Let me actually bring this up. Our ASUS PN41. This is actually an updated model that I did want to kind of touch on quickly for those that are kind of interested. I know that we got a kind of a little bit of a cool community that is interested in some of our mini PCs. So our mini PCs are going to be offered generally in two configurations. So that means that we have models that are going to be bare bone based models, and then models that are also flexible in terms of how you can kind of go set up their specifications. So what I mean by that is that if it is referred to as what's called a bare bone means that you can generally add in your memory and your storage as you see fit. That would be generally the range of customization. You would have to pick the model that you want related to the processor, as far as, whether it's maybe the lower or the higher end based processor, because that will be fixed on the model. But then you'll have flexibility in terms of figuring out where you want to go with in terms of the storage and with the different types of drives. So let's quickly touch on the models that we want to be able to kind of introduce right here. All right, so first is going to be this guy right here. Let me go ahead and load this up. This is going to be the PN41. So this will be now supporting 11th gen series processors right here. Fanless based design, right? USB power delivery, 2.5 gigabit LAN, Wi-Fi 6, and dual USB 3.2, Type-C connectivity. Very nice compact unit right here. Really easy design, very easy. You can VESA mount this so you can put it on the back of a monitor. It's very flexible in terms of what you can work with right here. It's got nice solid performance with that 11th gen architecture. It's going to be great for general productivity and application. You could turn this into a small kind of like little NAS, a media server. You could use this as kind of like a small storage solution, right? And be able to kind of serve files out in that regard. You do still have flexibility with iGPU though, because you can see here to be able to run multi-monitor based configurations. So that also is going to be nice. You can just see also how compact it is in terms of its overall dimensions. There's that micro SD card slot, the integrated microphones that are right there, and of course your Type-C, which is also supporting high speed output, and also BC 1.1 quick charge based support. We do also have some nice management options here in terms of the SSD heatsink based design, and giving you flexibility in terms of what you can do for either your traditional SATA based drive or your M.2 based SSD. So you've got some nice flexibility there. Here's a full recap in terms of your connection options that you have available to you. So it's quite robust in terms of those connection parameters, and you can see very, very low power consumption. So this works, like I said, great if you're going to be using this and setting it up in some type of situation where you kind of want to leave it on all the time, but not want to consume a lot of power. Less than 4 watts at idle. It's quite impressive in terms of what you have available to you. So that is going to be the mini PC PN41. Let me go ahead and just recap here the storage specification. So again, you got that 2.5 gigabit LAN, that Wi-Fi 6. And then you can see right there, it's going to be where you can see that N4500 in terms of that base processor that you're going to have there, along with that UHD graphics support, right? Excuse me, Wi-Fi 5, not Wi-Fi 6 on that model. Okay. And then we're going to have the PN62S. This will be a higher wattage CPU, but 10th gen based architecture, supporting Thunderbolt 3. So if you need even faster I/O connectivity, Wi-Fi 6 is going to be present on this model. And then the big update right here is going to probably be dual storage design, right? So you're going to have that 2.5 inch hard drive support, right? Along with M.2 based SSD support. So you're going to have both those drives, and you can simultaneously have both of those drives installed. Right. So I would say the big thing here is that if you want essentially higher performance due to the higher TDP for this CPU, and more storage and higher speed IO, right, with that Thunderbolt 3. And then lastly here, the PN63, which is an 11th gen design, Iris Xe graphics, so higher performing graphics than either one of those, along with DDR4 support, PCI Gen 4 support, which has been a rarity in mini PCs, right? So very, very fast, 2.5 gigabit LAN and Wi-Fi 6E. So this is definitely going to be kind of a much higher end base unit if you're really looking for a much higher end specification, right? So you want very high end performance from that CPU configuration. You want high speed memory performance, which also complements, like I said, the Xe graphics architecture, that PCI Gen 4 support, and then that 2.5 gigabit LAN and that Wi-Fi 6E. Do keep in mind that Wi-Fi 6E is only enabled within Windows 11 though, okay? So that is going to be important to keep in mind. All right, so that gets us covered there in terms of our mini PCs. Let's get ready to jump into the PC DIY Builders Spotlight. Double check if we got any questions from anybody out there. If not, we'll get ready to jump into it. Very flexible, I would agree. We got a lot of nice choices right here. So let's get ready to jump into it. All right, let me see, 2/18 is going to be today. So let's go with our first build here. This is going to be from Chris Gentry. All right, let's go ahead and take a look here at Chris's build. Give me one sec here. And okay, here we go. All right, guys. So we can see right here, we've got the system. This is a pretty cool setup, right? So he's got a little bit of kind of a streaming setup right here. We've got nice ultra wide monitor right here, secondary monitor and kind of portrait display. He's got his ROG Delta headphones right here. He looks like he's got a Spatha, and he looks like he's got a Chakram right here. Right, so nice setup. And he's also got a Claymore 2. I love that, right? He's also got the numpad on the left-hand side, so that's pretty nice. Cool, nice, very clean kind of setup right there. And then he's got an ROG Helios for, of course, his chassis, and looks like he also got some key lights there. So he definitely does some gaming, right? And some streaming. So now let's go ahead and take a closer look here at the system. We can see that we've got an ROG Maximus series board, it looks like. Extreme series model right here. He's got a Tough Gaming graphics card. He's got a ROG Strix LC series cooler in there. It looks like the 360 version. So that's going to be nice. Overall clean, well done. Nothing to complain about here. I like that he did use the included actually included stand, essentially the brace right here. Sorry, give me one second, guys. Let me make a quick adjustment here. And let me bring this back up here. Okay. Hold on one second, guys. There we go. Okay, that's what I wanted to do. Okay, so we can see right here that he's actually using the brace design that we have here for the actual graphics card. So that's a nice little inclusion that comes actually inside the box. Although you could actually use the brace right here that's inside of the Helios, but you know, it's really kind of your preference right here. He added a little something in here to give you a little bit of kind of lighting. He's got the Thor series power supply in there. Overall, it's clean, it's well managed, it's well done. He added a little sticker right there. Nice clean cable routing. Overall, nothing to complain about. It's a nice, clean, well done build, and I like, of course, the use of the Helios. That's a cool chassis, of course, in terms of our ROG chassis. So let's go ahead and actually bring up his Builder Spotlight submission form and take a look at some more details regarding his system. So give me a second here to bring up his submission form. Okay, got his submission form up here. And let me go ahead and bring up his system here. And let's get a little bit tight on there so we can kind of take a look right there. Normally like to have a couple more kind of, I'd say, images just for kind of reference to be able to kind of get a sense of a little bit more of what's going on in terms of the system right there, but it's all good. We can definitely still get a sense of kind of what he was doing in the system here. So this was actually his first build. So kudos in terms of this being your first build. That's always nice in terms of, I think, clean and well executed and functional. He didn't have a theme overall. 3 words to describe the system was gaming, streaming, and comfort. His name for the system is the Power Box. Okay. And actually, did I get a banner up for him? I didn't. So let me go ahead and actually, I'll get that up there in a moment. So give me one second, guys. Apologies for that, Chris. But let me go ahead and finish seeing here. So yeah, this is running ROG Maximus 13 Extreme. So that would be Z590, Tough 3080, 64 gigabytes worth of memory at 4266 with an 11900K, 360 AIO, so this ROG Strix LC. And then he's got the ROG Thor power supply in there. Looks like the 1000 watt. A Claymore 2, ROG Chakram and the Spatha X, the Helios, Delta S, and the Baltius course, gaming surface that we have. And then that ultra wide was the Tough Gaming VG34 series monitor. And then the secondary monitor was the Tough Gaming VG27. So he's definitely a huge fan of ASUS, ROG, and Tough Gaming. So thank you so much for your support, man. Awesome setup right there. He's most proud of the fact that he was able to, of course, build everything himself and get it up and running and is enjoying the system. I would definitely agree with that. Anything you'd like to maybe change about the build would be to maybe look to upgrade to a 3090 and maybe some RG monitors. I guess it depends on what you're looking to be able to get out of the monitors. Maybe if you're looking for maybe something like a formal NVIDIA G-Sync, or maybe looking to maybe able to jump up to a higher class of HDR performance or higher resolution. Those are definitely some options, but you got a solid definitely setup right there in terms of the monitors. And 3090 would really probably be most justified if you're willing to kind of jump up to ultra high refresh rate, 1440p gaming, or of course 4K based gaming. Took him about 5 months to be able to get everything all together. And his predominant kind of focus when he's gaming is Elder Scrolls Online, Battlefield, and Call of Duty, and 5M. All right. And he's a huge fan of a lot of the functions and features of ASUS's boards, including things like ASUS AIOC, Armory Crate, and the improved audio design on the board. So overall, very cool, man. And big kudos on a really solid job for your first time build. And I also like that you kept the color scheme not crazy, right? I like actually this little bit of the blue and kind of the yellow mixed composition. That gives you a nice little kind of contrast in terms of it all being blue. So overall, man, nice. And I will say right here, on the extreme, he's actually using right here. This is the OLED live dash display. You can see he put a little bit of an animation in there. Some people will put like a stat display for like voltages or temperatures or kind of other things like that. I like that he put a little bit of an animation right there, which is kind of a cool little touch. So overall, man, kudos, job well done in terms of this. So this is going to be a Power Box by Chris. So let's get ready to move into our next build. Which is going to be, let's see, I think this is going to be from IEM, from, of course, Team Italian Extreme Modders, some of the actual best modders out there in the game. As always, you know, I usually come away super impressed with what they bring to the table in terms of, you know, their just overall, their execution, their aesthetic, and kind of their overall designs. So let's go ahead and take a look here. Let me just make sure that I add this banner right here, guys. Actually, it doesn't work that way. From a software standpoint, I noticed IQ can control Armory Crate. It can't actually control Armory Crate. So to clarify, right, we essentially early in 2020, right, we made a collaborative relationship to essentially kind of try to work a little bit more closely with Corsair to allow for a limited level of synchronization support. Corsair doesn't allow essentially their products to have API access from Armory Crate. That's a choice that they decide to make. So you have to have an IQ software installed to be able to manage even something like Corsair's memory, where let's say other memory that we might have from other partners, you can control natively within Armory Crate. You don't actually have to have secondary software. But as part of kind of the sync experience, what we've tried to do is essentially allow IQ to be able to have synchronization with things like our motherboards first and foremost, but they can't actually control advanced elements like, let's say, the advanced ARGB headers that we have on the motherboard. Technically, there's no formal support for our graphics cards as well, or other types of ASUS RGB-based components, right? So the main kind of benefit, quote unquote, of utilizing IQ is that if you have, you know, IQ-based enabled cooler and fans and a chassis, that if you have an ASUS motherboard, that you could still kind of sync the motherboard lighting with the rest of that system, right? That's really the intent or the focus of the way that the plugin support functionality works. All right. But if you actually want the most extensive control of ASUS enabled components, you do still need to use either Armory Crate or Creator. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look here at definitely one of the coolest builds that I've seen here in a while, and definitely a very cool mod as well. And that's going to be right here from Team IEM. So we've got the Gundam RX782 base setup. So let's take a look at this guy. This is pretty cool. So first and foremost, we can already see that we've got some pretty cool designs, and then bam, there we go. Now we're taking it to the next level right here. Very, very, very cool. Love the actual chassis. I think this super complements, of course, the design aesthetic that we've got in terms of the build, right? So this is really, really cool. And you can see a beautiful color scheme that's complementary to the rest of the hardware. So we can already see that we've got the Gundam based board right here. We've got a water block, right? And now we did do a Gundam based graphics card, but I really love the way that they integrated the color scheme with custom cables to bring the block design to kind of complement everything else. Now, normally I'm not a fan of vertical block implementations or vertical card implementations, but I think here this bridged, of course, hard line that goes to the CPU and then ties in everything else kind of goes with this kind of Gundam kind of mech kind of vibe. So I think it's really complementary. This beautiful kind of silver design aesthetic that you have here, along then, of course, with the coolant, it all adds to this really, really cool vibe that just adds to kind of this mecha type vibe and feel to the system that looks really, really, really cool, right? I love the dual color scheme that we also have in terms of the actual coolant, right? And then just all these nice little subtle touches in terms of the colors, right? For the cables here, for the actual flow monitoring that's also built in there. It's just beautifully done. And you can see just fit and finish and attention to detail is present throughout. I mean, this is just fantastic. I love really everything about this. The board looks great. The block choice looks great. The layouts look really polished and really clean. And I love these type of runs right here where you can actually see that there's depth to the foreground and to the background, along with the two color choices, I think really help to elevate it and make it pop even further. We can then see what it looks like there with the panel. It looks just as cool with the panel, right? A lot of times you want to take the panel off to be able to see the inside, but this looks really, really awesome with the side panel on there, and love the beautiful color scheme. This is fantastic. It looks great. I mean, if you didn't know what you were looking at, you kind of like just, what is this kind of cool, like, you know, mech kind of robot thing kind of going on right there. So very, very cool, right, guys? Front side shot right there looks so cool. Love, of course, the fans directly exposed right there, the nice iconography that's present right there. All of this just is beautifully, beautifully executed. Yeah, this is definitely one of my favorites. I mean, but we've seen a lot of amazing Gundam-based themed builds since we did the Gundam Collaborative iPre, so that we've seen some great options and some great builds from those in the community and also from the modding community. Snef, who's checking out the stream, did a fantastic build as well. Some really, really cool stuff that we've seen the community do when it comes to the Gundam-based hardware. I love right here how we threw in a model, right? So yes. So we've got RX there to complement the RX build. That's great. That's great. I love that. Fantastic. Oh, and then of course, got to set it off, right? So look, we've got, this is not the Gundam headset, but we've got the Gundam mouse, we've got the Gundam mouse pad, and then a cool kind of white keyboard. And then of course, a nice little wallpaper along with the RG monitor. Very, very cool setup. I mean, this is really well done. Hats off to SA Mod and Team IAM, right? And just fantastic build. Fit and finish is masterclass level. The overall execution is fantastic, and definitely one of my favorite mods and builds that I've seen there. Beautiful work, man. So kudos through and through. Hopefully you guys are there in the stream and the community also appreciate it. Let's go ahead and take a little bit of closer look at his submission form. I don't even know which image to leave it on because this build looks so cool. I mean, that looks cool. But I guess we're going to go ahead and leave it there with a primary shot of the system and get a little bit of a closer sense in terms of what we've got in terms of a submission form. So let me go ahead and open up a submission form here first, and then we will go ahead and go from there. So get that open there. Okay, very cool. And let's show that up there. Okay, cool. And there we go. All right, so let's see here. So does it have a theme? Of course, it's a Gundam case mod. 3 words to describe the build: colorful, nostalgic, and powerful. Does it have a name? Yes, the Gundam RX 78-2, right? Which of course makes sense. It's featuring the Z590 Gundam Edition board, a 3090 Strix card, which was actually the white edition card, which is always sad to see it get water blocked, but it looks fantastic in this build. It's over about a $5,000 budget. Let's see, what aspect was they most proud of the build? I like that both the creation of the graphics and the contrast of the colors along with the internal custom loop. I 100% agree. The color theory and complementary design to the Gundam overall kind of, I'd say design aesthetic is beautifully done and really matches kind of those classic colors. So that's done extremely well. And the loop, I think, it doesn't take away from the hardware, which I think really is really nice. So there's a really great balance of being able to see the hardware really, really nicely, and then have the loop complement that. So you get really a great balance of aesthetics, performance, and then also having the loop be complementary to the aesthetic design that you're looking for. And I love the two-tone color design too. Is there anything they would change about the build? Nope. Took them about 3 months of work altogether to get everything up and running to what you see here in the final form. System is predominantly used for work. It's a very nice system for just work. And the favorite aspect was the actual design aesthetic of the Gundam-based motherboard. So a Z590 Gundam Edition based board. Overall, guys, fantastic build. Serious thumbs up. Masterclass. I love it, man. So thank you guys so much for sharing us that build here and being able to feature it here on the stream. So let me go ahead and get ready to load up our next build right here. Hey, Abdul, thanks for joining us on the stream. Happy to have you here. So thank you for joining us here. All right, so let's see. Next up, I think we've got, let's see, a build from Michael H. So let's go ahead and load up his system. I believe its name is tentatively, it doesn't have a name, but I believe he said that his friend called it the bomb, something along those lines. So we'll actually find out for sure here in the submission form. So let me go ahead and just bring it up here. This is going to be Michael H's system. Very cool system in terms of kind of the overall design aesthetic. So let me go ahead and just get it loaded up here. And we'll take a look. Yeah. All right, so let's see what we got going on here. All right, so very cool. So we've got a little bit of a white theme, which is always kind of cool because white is very reflective. It's got a nice little kind of, I'd say, open feel to it, right? That when you have the white there and the light helps to add a little bit of illumination, as opposed to when you have a black theme build, it's got like a really cool vibe to it because it's a little bit kind of more centralized in terms of the lighting. Two kind of different vibes, right? So taking a closer look right here, we can see we've got a cool kind of layout in terms of the water cooling. So we got the pump and the res right here. Some nice frosted hardline tubing that's in there as well. We've got an ROG Strix card, and we can tell that this is a brand new system, Z690, with our Maximus Z690 formula motherboard in there as well. And then we got an ROG Strix card. We've got some nice custom cables and giving you a nice little kind of set of colors, right? So we've got some black, we've got the white, we've got the orange, silver, and then we've got blue. And I think it actually all works together. I know some people would say that they'd love to see a white edition graphics card, but in the current market, it can be hard to get the cards. So I think that, you know, this card still looks great. And I love that he tied the RGB vibe in kind of with the rest of the ethos of the system. He's got some cool runs right here that are nicely done overall. Pretty good bends right here. It's always a little bit sad to, I think, see when you have a bend that runs over something like this, where you kind of eat into a little bit of kind of the visual aesthetic on the shroud. But, you know, it definitely works, and it's nice to see the integration. Props for this bend right here. I don't know how many bends it took him to do this, but these can definitely be really challenging getting these ultra tight bends like this. So he's got one going from the VRM, the cross shield block, and then we, of course, right here, we have the CPU block. And then you can see from the CPU block that's going out there. And then we have the other portion of the VRM right here. So he's water cooling the CPU and the VRM, right? And actually, I'm a fan of these kind of setups where you kind of maybe only cool the CPU and you don't cool the GPU, because the GPU doesn't really need it. Of course, it could benefit from it, even maybe running a little bit higher sustained boost clock, but it's not really that critical. And plus, it has a cool design aesthetic, right? The only benefit is that if you went with the probably the card blocked, then you could have this probably be like a single slot, and you could probably see that little lighting pattern down there a little bit more, right? But that being noted, it looks really well done, and it's clean and well executed. So here we can see we've got nice illumination right there in the front. I like this angle right here. We can still see those lines are looking good. And again, the frosted tubing with the orange coolant is definitely a nice touch. Yeah, Michael says very neat and concise bends. I would definitely agree. Oh, it looks like he's joining us there. Here, my friend called it bomb from Die Hard 3, right? So I really actually like Die Hard 3. So it definitely makes sense. Kudos, man. I really love the way that you did this overall theme. And I love the fact that you played around with the color scheme. The white and the orange, and I think the blue, that's a great kind of complementary set of colors that work really well. And you can see from this alternate angle, I love also that you can still nicely see here the OLED live dash screen. Your cable management's very tightly, cleanly done. And we can also see that he even used the included brace that also came included with the motherboard. So that's a nice little touch right there. And then just that front panel shot, it all ties in really nicely together. Very, very clean, very well executed. So let me see right here. A little bit of a different shot right here. We can see that he's got that nice, of course, DDR5 Trident Z memory. Looks really nice. I actually haven't seen too many of these DIMMs because most of the DDR5 that I've seen has not been RGB. So nice to be able to see RGB in there. This nice little frosted aesthetic, I think, with the blue going from the white to the orange to then this nice kind of chromed out fittings to then the blue right here looks really nice, and then ties it in again here with the blue as well. And that's kind of a little bit of what's called color blocking, is that when you actually have sometimes what some people wouldn't necessarily say is the same color, but an access contrast color, it can actually cause those other colors to become even a little bit more pronounced, a little bit more vibrant in some ways. So that's actually, I think, one of the cool benefits of him having the blue that's in there. Very, very nicely done. I'm already liking this design here too. We can see that this is somebody that is sensible in terms of the design layout, because not only do we have these bends that have been really well, but we can also see that we have easy access to it. Looks like the drain port. So always nice to know that you have easy way to be able to drain out the system. So kudos in terms of that attention to detail and making sure that it's accessible and well done, especially because with hardline bends, they're not as flexible, not as easy to maintain when working as opposed to a soft tube based setup. Of course, we got that nice EK block that's in there. There you go, your drain port. And then with the RGB lighting off, which it still looks cool. It's still got a nice vibe. Definitely a different vibe when you, of course, have it there without any lighting present, but still nice and clean, right? And he gave us a shot of the back. All right, kudos, man. So always a challenge with that amount of RGB and everything in there, but this is clean. It's well managed. It's executed well, and you've got good accessibility. Of course, your Commander core, you still left yourself exposed availability if you want to add another drive. You've got your SATA drives all mounted in there. Clean lines being routed. That's as much as you could really ask for. It's clean, well routed, and it's generally separated. I sometimes like to separate mine a little bit more, knowing where my cables might be going, but with the majority of the cables being probably here, being resonant to the RGB, it really works well. So there's nothing really you even need to change there. So it's all pretty sensibly routed and laid out. And so kudos also for including the cable management. Not everybody does want to include it. So overall, nicely done, man. I like that shot. That's a cool looking shot. But overall, I think we're going to leave it there. Let's go ahead and bring up here your submission form and see what we've got right here. And so this is Michael H's system right here. And let's see, does the build have a theme? It was white with orange, chrome, and blue accents. I think you nailed that on the head. 3 words to describe the build was white, water cooled, and clean. Does the build have a name? No, I haven't come up with anything, but my friend called it the bomb from Die Hard 3 when he saw it. In terms of hardware, we're pretty much looking at flagship level hardware, right? So this is a Core i9 12900K on a Maximus Formula Z690 based board, a 3080 Ti, right? So very high performance card. Some really nice memory, 6000 megahertz CL36 G-Skill Trident Z5 memory, a 980 Pro M.2 based SSD, 1000 watt power supply, 5000 X wide chassis, and then of course quantum based velocity, nickel and plexi in terms of that CPU block, and then the quantum kinetic that we have there in terms of the D5 right there for the pump res, right? And then Corsair hardline satin 14 millimeter tubes. And then the Corsair Hydrox radiator, which is also in white. And then he's also using the Corsair chrome fittings. Cable mod for the actual cables. And then the infamous Unifan AL120 fans is rounding out his RGB fans that he's got in there. About $6,200 in terms of the budget for the system. Overall, what is he most proud of? For just his second water cooling build, he's really happy with how it turned out. The reservoir was quite a snug fit, and I like how it fills up the space, but at the same time, I don't think it's too much either. I think you nailed it on the head. I would very much agree that this is a very good balance to fill up the space and not make it seem empty, right? Not have necessarily a void, but it doesn't seem like it's too much and it's not eating into too much space. And I'll tell you, for only your second water-cooled build, especially if it's your second hardline, these are some nice bends that are clean and well done, especially these 2 bends, which I can tell you, even this bend up right here, these are actually a bit trickier and they don't come out as polished as compared to a lot of people, especially on only their second time around. So kudos there. Is there anything they would change about the build? He would love to try to have a white graphics card, so the white, of course, Strix card, but that's pretty challenging to be able to get. And then beyond that, he's potentially looking to maybe go with a vertical mount. I don't think I would want to go with vertical mount. I think if you really did want to go with something different, it would probably be to block the card and be able then to even be able to see more of this white. I think going a vertical mount, it could be interesting. It depends on how you play out with the runs. But I think that the color scheme would be a little bit more challenging unless you started to mix a secondary, a kind of maybe res line with maybe blue or another color in there, that I think it would take away a little bit from kind of the from the visibility elements of this cable right here and this, because then it would also change where this cable would be routed, right? But, you know, to each his own. And definitely, I know there's a lot of people that do like that vertical mount, right? But he's definitely saying that that's something that he might want to play around with. Took him, let's say, he planned it for over about 2 months. So he had the motherboard and CPU in November, and then he had to wait until mid-January to be able to get the last things essentially all together. About a week's worth of assembly time, and then pretty much kind of getting it all together and planning it all out. So about 2 to 3 days to actually build it, which actually I think is quite good, and then a 24-hour leak test. So overall, man, for the time that you put into it, it sounds like you did some really sensible and well-timed planning to be able to make sure that everything kind of went through smoothly. So kudos to you there in that regard. What does he do mostly on the system? And it's generally for gaming. So he plays mostly Icarus right now, a bit of Hitman 3 and PUBG. The main game was supposed to be the new Battlefield, but right now that's not necessarily the focus. So he's right now maybe checking out some new games to play. So if anybody's got some recommendations for him, make sure to go ahead and drop them in the chat, what he thinks he might want to try out. I'm personally really excited about Warhammer, which just dropped. And of course, you've got the new updates to Cyberpunk. So maybe that's something you want to try out. But it sounds like you're a little bit of a first-person shooter vibe. So, you know, if anybody's got any first-person shooter type vibes, make sure to send those his way. As far as favorite aspects in terms of ASUS functions or features, he's always been a very big fan of the ASUS UEFI environment. He finds it kind of easy, accessible, and overall a really great design to be able to kind of get more out of his system. He's also a really big fan of the aesthetic design that we have on the ROG Formula board, and also the screen, so the live dash display. So he also likes that the kind of design that we have, where kind of pretty much all the M.2 drives, they're hidden, right? Because that's actually part of the heatsink shroud design, right? So pretty much it not only aesthetically covers everything, but it also as a thermal benefit. So overall, man, Michael, thumbs up on the build. Quality done, well executed. Hats off, man. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at our next system. I would definitely agree. It's a very cool system and it's well done. It's not really, just to say, it's not really up to us. It's really up to them. You know, the realistic challenge is that it doesn't make sense for a lot of companies to spend time and effort into trying to map out specialized control for auxiliary controllers. And the reason why is because it can be very complicated. A lot of people don't understand this for even ASUS, right? We have literally had to do thousands of permutations of extensive control. Armory Crate is literally the largest RGB ecosystem in the entire industry, and the fact that we have to literally support simultaneously hundreds of motherboards, right? Every single RGB peripheral that we've made, laptops and desktops, right? Along with anything else that we've made that's RGB, is all managed within one application across multiple generations. And unlike competitors, which might be using a proprietary hardware-based controller, we're doing it across RGB and ARGB-based systems, which is exceedingly challenging. It takes a huge amount of software resources and R&D effort to essentially have this type of extensive bridge level support. And you can actually even see this within kind of the open source community, where you have programs like OpenRGB, which have literally taken years to try to offer mixed RGB ecosystem, because it is so complicated due to the number of different microcontrollers and different types of LED implementations on products. It's actually always easier to maintain an RGB ecosystem when you have a locked ecosystem and you used one microcontroller for control of so many different types of devices. But take, for instance, if you had like an older B450 motherboard that only had RGB, and then all of a sudden you have an ARGB based device, the two microcontrollers microcontrollers into their lighting performance schemes are entirely different. They could even be running at different frame rates, different control parameters, and then to mix them together to be able to have some elements of synchronicity control is actually quite challenging. So this is the reason why you generally don't see broad level interoperability. And the fact that we actually can afford to do that with partners that do work directly through either inserting products on the motherboard or through the headers is actually a testament to the team that we have that have been able to do this over the years to be able to actually bridge as much support as we have been able to do. So it is quite a bit of an undertaking. So let's go ahead and keep rolling this along here. Next build I think we've got here is going to be from Dang, I believe, and it's the ROG Z11 ATX. So let's go ahead and take a look and see what we've got going on here. Oh, no problem, man. Fantastic build. I was happy to be able to go ahead and show it here on the stream. So let's go ahead and go to our next system. Okay, very cool. So let's see what we've got right here. This is a pretty cool build. I'm always excited when I get to see small form factor builds, right? Z11, of course, is not going to be the most compact type of system, but it is definitely featuring a mini ITX board. And it's also got a bit of a different design aesthetic, which is always interesting in terms of just seeing how people decide to kind of approach building in this type of system. So let's go ahead and take a look and see what we've got right here. So we can see right here, they're giving us kind of this nice angled shot. We can already see some interesting design choices here, right? So you can see we've got the board, we've got some water cooling going on right there, we've got the RGB memory, and we have the graphics card. But I can tell you that the orientation and the layout is different. This is quite interesting. So there's more story to be told here. Let's see what we got going on. I mean, I can tell you right here, normally the graphics card would actually be visible on the this side right here of this chassis and not right here. So we already have something that is showing us that this is actually a mod that might not even look like a mod. Okay, here's the opposite side, Z11. That's one of the really cool elements is you got a lot of I/O, right? One USB, another USB, Type C USB, another USB, and then another USB port. So a lot of USB on this board. And then we can see right here some very interesting customization where you can see that we get looks to have probably be the element here of a distro, but there looks like this will be the pump right there. We've got the I/O that's there for the card, right? Some very interesting layout and design here choices. This is a lot of work here. This is pretty cool. Yeah, this is quite interesting. All right. Yeah, and we can definitely see here how this has actually been cut out and laid in, and adds for a very interesting design aesthetic. So here we can see now with the panel off, right? And we can get a closer look. So normally in a classic Z11, the graphics card would actually slot in, and the PCI slot would be down here in this kind of section, right behind this glass, and this graphics card would be vertically oriented in this way. So you would see it through the front. But actually what you see instead here is you have the tempered glass panel, but you see here's the motherboard, and then here is the graphics card, and it's directly exposed in the field of view. So it's an entirely different approach to the way that the Z11 is designed, and it doesn't natively design this configuration. So they had to actually go through and pretty much mod the type of kind of setup environment to be able to achieve this. And it's got a very, very cool kind of design aesthetic here. So we can take a look right here, and we can see that we've got the board layout. We've got, of course, your memory. You've got your dual base graphics card in there. So overall, this is very interesting. Very, very cool. So here you can see the actual board, right? And you can actually see how it's all been laid out, right? So we know the PCI slot right there. We've got the live dash display right there. Got the water cooling, right? That's actually going into the VRM and the CPU. Got the monitoring, and then the graphics card. This is very cool. This is an impressive amount of work that's gone in here. Then you have, of course, the power supply in the normal position, the RGB shroud that's also enabled there, and that's all been set up. And it's very clean and very well executed. This is very cool. I'm seriously impressed with this. So let's go ahead and I guess, yeah, we'll leave it right there, and we're going to go ahead and take a look. But keep in mind, guys, again, the thing that you're not seeing, right, again, if we go back right here, right, is that here we got all that water cooling, right? So you don't even see any of the the radiator. You don't see the pump in the reservoir, right? But you do see that beautiful work in the very beginning photo right there with the distro, right? So you can see right there just the amount of work that's gone into this. It's quite impressive in terms of what we have here. So let's see here what we've got in terms of the submission form. So give me a second here to see if I can bring this up here. See if I can bring, hold on one second here. I want to make sure that actually I've got his submission form. And oh, okay, so it doesn't look like it actually got filled out. So I don't have the details here. So I'm going to definitely want to see if I can hopefully get some follow-up information, because I would love to know the extent of how he did some of these things here. So sadly, we don't have the information from the submission form to find out actually the level of kind of time and effort that he went into right here. But this is really, really cool in terms of the time and work that went into the design here. So kudos and thumbs up, man, because this is some nice work that is done here in terms of the overall kind of modification to be able to put in the board with the actual setup that you have here, and we're making that all work within the chassis, man. This is definitely, for me, this would be a masterclass type of mod and water cooled build. So kudos in terms of the time and effort. It's an impressive type of setup to see. Okay, all right, and so I think we've got one last build right here. And this is going to be the Stormtrooper. So let me go ahead and get this submission form up here. And we will get this loaded up here, and we will show you what we got going on. Let's see next here. And I believe this is, I think this is, and the interesting thing too, this one is going to be inside of a 900D, which is actually a pretty challenging chassis to work in. It's not it's not the easiest chassis, and a lot of that actually comes down to is that when you talk about kind of bigger chassis, they're not always the friendliest chassis to work in. They can actually be a bit challenging in terms of actually doing a build in, because you've got a lot of usable space, and you have to kind of figure out how do you make that space work right? So let's go ahead and take a look and see what we've got going on here. So we can see that we've got the setup. We've got two monitors right there. We've got that big 900D. I've used this chassis before, and it's actually quite a bit of a chassis. It's quite heavy. It's a lot to move around and kind of work within, but it does have a lot of cool space if you know what to do with it. So we can see right here, right off the bat, that there's already been a pretty cool design aesthetic between the actual Stormtrooper that you can see we've got right here, and then on the inside. So let's go ahead and dive a little bit deeper into this build here. So next shot. Okay, so this is pretty interesting. Let's see what we've got going on right here. You can see right here that looks like we've got this custom plate right here, and then of course we've got our reservoirs. We've got some tubing in here, some really interesting kind of tubing runs, which are clean and well done, using kind of a backdrop kind of design where you've got kind of a matte background, and then you got that white pop that exists, of course. And so the black and white vibe throughout is really what's helping to kind of make this a little bit kind of more pronounced, and also align with kind of that subtle thing that when you're thinking of kind of Stormtrooper, you're thinking of the white and the black motif. So you're kind of seeing those both come together. We've got a nice little ROG Strix board that's in there, the classic G-Skill RGB memory, of course, with that black and white vibe, with the white being done by the RGB, and then the black within the DIMMs itself. Some nice, cool runs. I like this just kind of coming out and then splitting out to the top. I think that's a cool design aesthetic choice that works well. Got the helmet down here at the bottom, and then a horizontally mounted card. And then, of course, you've got your custom white cables, then with your black cable comes, which is a nice kind of little contrast. I think I actually like this maybe a little bit more than maybe going with a black and white type of cable comb. So I think he did a really nice choice right there to be able to give that kind of consistent white to tie in there. Right. So, but I could see that maybe either way. I could that maybe see going kind of white and then maybe some black on the inside, or keeping it all white and then the black being done with the accent of the cable combs. Kind of works either which way. Overall, got the cool kind of readout that you have right there. We can see we put on that little heatsink drive. This was in an older series drive. I think this build was done around 2018. So before you started to see some of our higher end builds with more kind of extensive shrouds that would exist for kind of more of the board and for more of kind of the M.2 drives, but still nicely clean and complementary there. These look, I think, like noise blockers. So nice quality fans right there. And I love these little accents that we have right here in terms of the stormtrooper right there in the front and in the back. So you saw that you had one in the back right here, and then you got another one in the front. So there's like these cool little decals. So it looks like there we've got, I think, Darth Vader, and then there we've got Stormtrooper, right? Overall, very cool. And then we've got that nice plate there at the bottom. Very cool. Yeah, and then some nice kind of fittings, all tying it in together there. And then, kind of before, right? I mean, that's a lot of work, right? Where you can pretty much see what they did here at the end to, what you started with. And you can see how much space you're going to have to work with to be able to kind of fill it all out and kind of make it work right. You can also see how big the chassis is because you got such a large radiator up here with 4 fans. So you can see how big the 900D is. A little bit of an angled shot just to give you some of that presence there. And I think that's a nice shot that shows you that nice bright effect that you have right there with that internal panel. Very cool. It's a nice, classy, clean, well-executed setup with some nice kind of touches there to be able to really bring kind of theme all together. I like it, guys. What do you guys think? It's overall a cool setup, cool design, and a cool concept that I think has overall been brought together. So let's go ahead and see what we've got here in our submission form. Does the build have a theme? Star Wars Stormtrooper. 3 words to describe the build. May the force be with you. That's not 3 words, but I think that they fit well within the theme of the build. At C, does a build have a name? Yeah, Stormtrooper 900D. That makes sense. We've got some hardware here with the ROG Strix Z270 -E gaming, a Strix GTX 1080. There's a M.2 base SSD from Samsung in there, 960 series. Also a 1 terabyte base drive that's in there, 750 watt power supply running in there. 10 noise blocker fans, E-loop fans that are in there, and then 2 480 millimeter rad. So quite a bit of radiators to be able to actually account for the CPU and the GPU. Actually, in some ways, that's probably a lot more than you really need, but the benefit essentially of such large radiators and that number of fans is you should be able to run those at extremely low RPM, and be able to have essentially very good cooling performance, but a very quiet system, right? And then water cooling stuff is by Baiski, along with HQ Easy Modding. That's all inside that 900D. Then many parts are also from Cold Zero. Let's see. Yep, 16 gigabytes of G-Skill, and then he's got that 7700K was overclocked to 5.1 gigahertz. I'm not sure if that was probably I'm assuming probably an all-core overclock across all of them. So overall, close to about 4K in terms of the actual price point at the time. He was most proud essentially of the kind of the overall theme and the aesthetic and the clean execution. And I would agree with that. The theme, I think, is nicely tied in together, and it's nicely kind of detailed out there without being too, I think, strong. It's well balanced, and overall kind of all the layout is done clean and well, right? And I do like the fact that, like I said, all the accents in there, there's nothing that essentially is too heavy, too extreme. They're all kind of subtly well implemented, and those bends are nice and clean and routed well as well. Anything that he would have changed to the build? No. Took him about 2 weeks to altogether put everything together. It was a system that was used for a show event, and there's also a video. So I'll make sure I actually link that video there in the chat. And he's a huge fan of ASUS overall. Just he loves the designs, the features, and the functions. So very, very cool in that respect. So overall, I'm a big fan of the build. I'm going to go ahead and link you guys the video in the chat as well. So if you guys do want to take a look there, you guys can also do that. Okay, so let's go ahead and just finish kind of rounding that out one more time. Very cool. I love that just accent and taking a use at that bottom place, kind of that illuminated plate, just I think really adds to the overall aesthetic and the vibe to tie it all together, right? Overall, very cool, very clean, and definitely well executed. So kudos right there in terms of that build. overall, I think it's nicely done. So those are our submissions for this week from the PC DIY Builder Spotlight. Overall, some really nice solid builds that we've had there, and some just great showcases again. And again, if you guys want to be able to show off your builds, make sure to go ahead and submit them in terms of the PC DIY Builder Spotlight. I will drop the link in the chat right now if you guys want to check out the group, and it's under our featured announcements. It's just a simple Google form. You can drop in your information and then drop in your photos, and we'd love to feature your build here on our PC DIY Builder Spotlight. And we do it every week. So whether it's a new build or an old build, you saw that one, I think, was built in 2018. We've got builds from all kinds of times, air cooled to water cooled, first time builds to, of course, your 10th build. It doesn't matter, mini ITX to ATX, whatever. Feel free to go ahead and submit it as part of our ASUS PC DIY Builder Spotlight. The last thing that I did want to go ahead and touch on is, just give me 1 second right here, is I know that we had some questions regarding kind of, there's been people that kind of been asking about kind of just different types of board options that we've had available for, I'd say, Z690. And I know a lot of the focus gets put on, of course, the DDR5 based offerings, but some people kind of just still ask, do you have DDR4 based offerings? So I do want to go ahead and just make sure that, people are aware that we do have our DDR4 based variants, so that if you are looking for some options, we do have those for you. So I just want to kind of recap kind of some of the options that we do have right there. So we do have the Tough Gaming Z690 Plus, which is a DDR4 based variant of a motherboard. It's a great motherboard, pairs great with 12600K, 12700K, 12900K, doesn't matter. Very strong, robust power delivery, 2.5 gigabit LAN. You got the Wi-Fi 6 that's on there, multiple M.2 SSDs, right? So one M.2 SSD, then two M.2 SSDs, and then you got the two other M.2 SSDs in right there, USB Type-C, RGB lighting support, strong overclocking, whether it's going to be for, like I said, the CPU or for your DDR4 based memory. So this is a great option if you're looking to be able to jump in, but you want a lower price point because of the DDR4 adoption, but still being able to get great performance from that 12th gen microarchitecture, right? And you're still also going to get PCI Gen 5 support for the primary graphics card for the futures, right? So another option, if you wanted to have a secondary choice, right, but maybe in the ROG lineup, would be the ROG Strix Z690-A. So let me go ahead and show you that board right here. This version we have right here in DDR4. So this one is going to be just kind of that upgrade. It's going to go to a little bit more of a higher end stylized aesthetic. You're also going to have more premium features, such as our AIOC technology for overclocking. So ASUS AIOC, which is a great way to essentially be easily and effectively overclock your CPU that's specific to your CPU and your cooling solution. You just toggle a button on there and it will automatically do the work for you by efficiently applying a per core based overclock that also uses an adaptive base voltage. There's also nice premium things like integrated mem test that's built into the UEFI, and a lot of more kind of supplemental specialized design points, such as higher quality audio design, which also includes a Savvy Tech amp that's built on board, and some other niceties that are built on with probably one of the nicest things that people also like right here is going to be the Q release design, which is an injection system for the graphics card. So when you install it, you just push a button and it can also inject the graphics card. It supports our dual contact M.2 SSD based design, so it can actually cool the front and the back of M.2 based SSDs, which is more common for larger capacity based drives, and some other cool options. So that is going to be a DDR4 based option as well. And I would say our last option that I want to touch on right here is going to be probably the Z690-P. This is a really great choice and our entry to really Z690, and having a very, very aggressive price point for a 12th gen enabled board that, again, could be fully supporting the 12600K, 12700K, 12900K, give you still a great overclocking experience, strong DRAM interoperability, good expansion support, still gives you good quality networking specifications, including Wi-Fi if you want to have that on there, right? And this is going to be the Z690P, and it's still a nice looking board, right? You're still going to have internal USB-C header. You're still going to have 1, 2, 3 M.2 based SSDs that are going to be available to you, isolated audio design, like I said, Wi-Fi that's going to be on there, good quality power delivery on there, which can readily support, like I said, stable and reliable operation, whether it's going to be stock or overclocked, multiple RGB headers on there, of course, for your fans, for your coolers, for your chassis, for whatever you're going to be running. So this is going to be the lowest priced option that we'll have within the ATX based lineup. So I think those are three really great choices that, again, if you're looking for something 12th gen, but DDR4 we do have options that are going to be available to you with, like I said, that Prime Z690-P DDR4, that Tough Gaming Z690 Plus DDR4, and then that ROG Strix Z690-A DDR4 based version. So all solid options there if you're looking for something for 12th gen and for jumping into like I said, DDR4 as opposed to DDR5. So hopefully that covers that helps to wrap up our stream this week, guys. So as always, thank you for joining us on the stream. Hopefully you end out having a good weekend. And if you guys have Mondays off, fantastic. Stay safe, stay healthy, take care, and take it easy and enjoy the rest of your week. And stay safe, stay healthy. All right, guys, take care.